Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wonder of Faith. I'm Anthony Bush, and today we're going to keep going along talking about the Wondrous Orders. So, last time we talked about the importance of external relations and dealing with others. And now we're going to return to talking about our personal betterment. And today our topic is going to be having a pure heart. So, what does it mean to have a pure heart, and how does it help us to be better people? That's all something I hope to tackle within this episode. So here we have the doctrine of the pure heart, and it states, "In purity, the grace of the Lord flows forth. By being pure and free of sin, on the inside, the sins of the external world are made weak, while the love of the Lord shines through evermore. Let purity be the light that guides always." So pure heart and purity, I would like to define it before we go any further. So to be pure of heart, I think, has two layers to it. Firstly, there's the aspect of innocence, which we'll cover later down the road as well. It means that we protect ourselves from external knowledge or sources that may degrade our ability to be pure. Because when one has an innocence to them, they are ignorant of certain evils, let's say, that allows them to remain defended from it. Now, this is different from being so caught up in your daily life that you don't know anything about the world. That's not a good thing. But there is a degree where we shouldn't seek out certain sins or vices that we don't know about, because in the end they may come to ensnare us and make us reliant on them. So innocence is one aspect of it. Purity is another. So purity is having an active mindset that you will avoid anything that is deemed impure, which is anything that is deemed sinful by the church and by the Christian tradition as a whole. And of course, we all have those things that we give into. We're only human after all. But being pure is that active mindset that we're trying to avoid the near occasion of sin, as stated in the act of contrition, and be able to avoid that so we can be better and focus only on God in all things. So number one, take allegiance to the Lord every day and give thanks for the life given and lived. So it's good to start the day on a good note and remind yourself what you live for. So to thank God at the beginning of every day and remind ourselves that we serve Him and only Him, we set the whole day up to be a prayer to Him, as many saints have called it. And by doing so, we make it easier to avoid sinful occasions and vices in general and keep our purity for that day, because we are dead set on serving God and nothing else. Number two, do not allow entertainment to taint the soul and allow darkness to overcome. I think especially in modern times, it is so easy to watch a show or something that we love, and then gradually it starts to introduce certain things that are not healthy for ourselves, whether it's bad habits or explicit content. All these things, whether we realize it or not, affect us in certain ways psychologically. And it's hard, but it's better if we avoid it, even if it means not watching our favorite show or listening to one of our favorite songs, because in the end, its content is unbefitting of God and those who serve Him. And this kind of begins to talk about a tilt toward changing our behaviors to match being part of God's kingdom, because that world heaven distinction, we have to worry about that and being and living for heaven and that heavenly goal, instead of living for the world in the present, what we can see and feel now, the tangible. So it's a very difficult process, but it's one worth committing to for sure. Number three, let words and actions of others remain without effect if they intend to harm. There are so many people who base their livelihood on how others see them, and that's just not a sustainable way of living, because if you're going to depend your self-worth on what people say, which changes all the time, then it's not going to be solid or substantial, because you have no self-confidence and are unable to see the value of your own self. So listening to other people Their insults, even their compliments can uh, make us believe in a false reality about ourselves. Because we must always be conscious of the truth of our reality and being open and honest about ourselves. Whether we struggle with something or whether we need to look at some sinful act that we do, whether others see it or not, we have to be self-conscious about it and make sure that we're not just letting the truth or the ideas of others influence that. It's good to listen to others, but we have to listen to ourselves as well. It's a two-way street in that regard. And of course, through those two avenues, we also have God's truth, which comes forth through that. By discerning the self and discerning the words of others, we come to find God's words as well. Number 4, pray for those who falter on the journey. So we may fall in our quest to be pure at times, but it can also help us to pray for others who may do the same. So by caring about others in their state of purity, we help ourselves to become more disciplined and go onto the path of having the purest of hearts. So don't ever try to do it alone. This goes back to what we've said in past videos. Don't try and be a loner and try to perfect yourself without someone else's help, because that's just not as helpful or as powerful as doing it in solidarity with someone else. Because to share in that mission with someone else is to make it that much stronger and that much more able to help you. It has more fruit. 2 heads are better than 1, of course. 2 souls are better than 1. And so we should always look for people who are willing to help us and follow us along the journey to sainthood, to purity, and not shy away from it. Number 5, remember the value and strength in innocence, and especially appreciate it in others. So I think we all know those people who just seem to be good people, have good hearts, and they would never hurt anyone, or they're always there to help someone. These are the people we want to emulate. People are usually attracted toward them as friends or even romantically because they see something good in them that they want in themselves. And that's very common, I think. It's very natural as well. And so if we're truly attracted to someone because of their good, then we should do more than just want to be with them. We should want to be like them and see what do they do that adds to their goodness. And we should try to practice those same actions so we can also become better people and become pure of heart. Now, there are especially people who are innocent, as they don't seem to know a lot about the world or politics or the usual things that get people angry. And they're, I would say, a treasure to us, because we may not be able to be as innocent as them, because innocence is lost to a degree once you've learned something or experienced something. But we can bask in their innocence and appreciate it and allow it to help us to be better people, even if we can't be in that same space as them in regard to innocence. Number 6, revere and follow the ways of the saints in heaven. So there are many saints, but there are many ways also that they got to where they are through different practices, devotions, prayers. And so we should look at all the saints in their stories and what they went through and try to relate them to our own lives. Then usually people have a few saints that they especially are devoted to. So find yourself a few and allow them to pray for you. You know, they can hear you in heaven. You can ask that they intercede on your behalf, because as Catholics, we do not worship saints, but we ask that they intercede for us, almost like asking our friends here on earth to pray for us. But the extra added caveat is that they have reached heaven already, and they have lived a path that was rightful and has allowed them to enter the heavenly kingdom. And so with that valuable status, we can ask for their help to do the same and become saints as well. Number 7, be a model of faith and remember that others are taking the example of this faith. So if we are looking at others to emulate, then others are looking at us as well. And I think it's important to be conscious of this at times, because we're not just living for ourselves. I've said this before. We are living for others as well. People depend on us, whether we realize it or not. And we always have to be the best version of ourselves, or strive to be it, because others are watching, and others may take their lead from us. And we have to realize that reality. We have to hone in on our leadership skills, even if we do menial daily tasks. Because in the end, if we can help them to become better and get closer to heaven, then we're doing our job as the Christian faithful. That's what we're meant to do. In words and in actions, we have to spread the gospel, and we have to show them the way forward. 8. Remain pure in word, thought, and action in order for the faith to remain strong. So this goes back to, we have things confront us that we don't want to see there, and they usually involve a path that leads us to sin. So it's good to cut them off before they hold influence over us, because sin itself is it follows the path of addiction. When one sins, there's a human side of us that is satisfied, but the soul is unsatisfied and is actually weary because of the sinfulness. But the flesh can't get enough of it, and we go more and more into it until it controls us and we're enslaved by it, because sin is slavery. But through God, through His intercession, and through our will uniting with His, we can break from it. That doesn't mean we're not going to feel temptation ever again, but it does mean that we can become stronger people, stronger souls who can resist all evil and all that Satan has to offer. Because that's the way forward. People, you hear it all the time, people who have their heaven here on earth will not have their heaven up above. Because we are called to not be comfortable in the flesh, but comfortable in the spirit. By focusing on God, by only wanting Him, we can avoid sin and avoid a path that we do not want to take. Number 9. Remember the grace of God and how important purity is to retain this grace. So being pure of heart and focusing only on God is a grace that He grants us, and He freely gives it. We're all capable, but we just do not choose to accept it from time to time when we choose sin instead of Him. But we must always be aware that the grace is there, the ability is there, and if we truly pray and seek Him and try hard enough, we will slowly turn away from sin and toward Him and become more and more like the saints. And this is what we can hope for. This is what the reality is. It's a joyful reality, and that's why it's our opportunity and our mission to take God's offer, accept Him, and be the best we can be for Him, regardless of what the world says or what people say. There's a book called The Imitation of Christ that was written in the Middle Ages, and it's very beautiful. It contains directives to help you to become closer to God, but it lends itself most especially to religious life, like secluding oneself from the world completely. But it has parts where Jesus Himself is talking to us, and it talks about how no matter what the world gives us, pain, suffering, good, bad, it's all because of Christ, and it's all part of the plan. The world doesn't control the universe. God does. So that's why it's important that even though the world may be very, very influential right now, in the long run, in the long game, it won't be. And true happiness lies in God and Jesus and all the teachings of the faith, which the church holds. So it's important to remember, even if it seems like the world is right, or the world may hold the most influence at the moment because it's what we can see and hear and feel, we have to be faithful enough to turn away from it and to seek only God's authority, because that in the end is what we're called to do in our nature, and it's what will give us the most happiness in the end. Number 10, take the side of purity in all discussions. So don't only be pure, but also defend it, argue for it, show its beauty. Because to be pure means to save a soul and to become closer to God. So whoever you meet, if you get the chance, tell them about the power of purity and how it's a grace and not just some bondage that keeps us from enjoying ourselves. Because I think a lot of people see things for their surface value, but they don't delve deeper into the benefits of God's graces. And purity is definitely one of those. At first, it may seem we limit ourselves from having fun, or we are choosing to be boring instead of living it up or living our lives. But after that, we start to see an internal consciousness that we're part of something greater than that, and we become more in tune with God, with the divine, with the spiritual in general. And through that, we be in specific ways, we see life, we enjoy life in ways we never could if we just took a worldly path. And that's a reality with most things God says. Like at first they seem boring or constricting, but in true God paradoxical fashion, they usually are more freeing than their worldly counterparts. And number 11, always teach the importance of purity to those most ignorant of its power. So don't only tell everyone, but seek out those who don't seem to know purity as a friend or as a precept, because they're the ones that need it most. And so it's our duty. We're called to once again come to that person's aid, be a friend to them, love them, and teach them what is true about purity, especially here. So if they don't know self-control, help them to know self-control. Be there with them, suffer with them, help them through their addictions without them affecting you or influencing you. That's always a line that does not need to be crossed. We can help someone if we're able to maintain our own state in faith. But if it starts to damage us, then we need to separate ourselves, because we have to maintain our path to salvation. And that person, if they're drawing us off that path, it needs to be shown elsewhere, because our soul is not strong enough to handle their influence at the time. But perhaps someone who's has a stronger faith is. So we don't just abandon them, but we get them help, or we help them through allowing others who are more capable to step in, rather than us helping them to our detriment. So this is it for the video today. I hope this was insightful to you all. I'll see y'all next Friday, and as always, the book that I'm reading from, the Wondrous Orders, is on Amazon, so you can check it out. I'll leave the link in the description. And leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment if you have a question, and I'll see you all next Friday. May God bless you and be with you.